The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Happiness Jungle TV show. I'm your guest host, CammieBaker.com, and I'm excited, as I always am, for all of our shows because everybody that we have on the show are visionary and entrepreneurial and have a vision and a method and a madness, and Michelle Baker is no exception to that rule. Michelle and I met at an event, a networking event. Michelle had a table and I got a table at this event. And no, I don't do a lot of tables at events. This one I was at specifically because I knew there would be entrepreneurs and business owners there with nothing else to do but chat, because it was one of those kinds of places. And boy, did we. So, Michelle, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, we definitely had a kindred spirit that day. I think that's why we were predominantly the reason why we were there. So what am I? I'm a designer and an artist at heart, but also very entrepreneurial. I have been since a really young age. I can remember 14 years old starting my own little businesses. 20 years old, I ran a business out at Hampton Beach.
What were you doing at 14?
I would go from neighbor to neighbor. I had a little network in my neighborhood, and I would do women's nails.
Really?
Yep, I had a whole, it was the 80s. I had all these nail polishes, and they would pay me $5.
Nice.
And on Saturday, I would go to like 3 or 4 different houses, and I would paint their nails, and then I had my $20 for the weekend.
Pure profit, too.
14, it's not a bad start. Yes, low overhead.
Good for you. So 14, you're doing nails. 20, you were doing what in college?
I was doing caricatures out at Hampton Beach. I just decided I did have another job at the time, and I was getting pretty good at cartooning and doing caricatures. So I tried that for a summer.
Which leads you right into what you're doing today, and just absolutely exquisite artistry that you do, and have been doing a lot of it on Etsy. And tell everybody a little bit about the Rock and Chalk.
Rock and Chalk is about 5 years old, and that came about as I did have other more corporate jobs, and I did more, even as a freelancer, I was working with more business to business corporate graphic design. When I stepped away to have children, I sort of decided it was time to get back into illustration and be able to do a little more of the fine art side. So Rock and Chalk came out of me experimenting with charcoal and chalk illustration, which I took toward a food and beverage topic as my subject matter. So that kind of, I still end up doing a lot of business to business work, but it's for restaurants or it's for beverage brand companies, as well as event signage for people who are having big events. It could be corporate events, it could be weddings. So Rock and Chalk has been a total exploration of like how to apply fine arts into something that's you can monetize.
I think as entrepreneurs, it's a fine art to figure out what your skill, what your niche is, and how to make money and monetize it.
Right.
Which is also something you help artists do,
right.
is to learn how to monetize what they do. I wish we had a way to put up on the screen an example of what your work looks like, because it is exquisite. But tell everybody where they can find examples, your website, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. Rock and Chalk. Now I always have to spell it because it sounds like shock, but it's like a chalkboard. Rockin, ROCKINCHALK.com. And you'll see hundreds of examples of the work that I do. And I mean, that's the long story short. Finding that vibe was the other struggle. Was after 12, 13 years in graphic design, I could have done 10 different things. That's what you do as a graphic designer. You design what a client needs. So there was a struggle there of finding the direction to go, because you can't confuse customers and say, here's the 20 different things I do. Which one do you want to buy? If you do that, you need 20 different websites.
Yes.
So I just actually gave a talk at a gallery in Exeter about that very thing, about finding your niche and then playing to your strengths within the audience that's going to appreciate it.
Well, I think that's a great point for our viewers, especially the people who are looking for someone like yourself to hear, because I know when I went from real estate to network marketing back into real estate into doing Mingle to Millions, I just thought it was one business, but I've realized that online programs versus face-to-face programs, and one-on-one versus group, and being a speaker versus being an author, and are you doing fiction or nonfiction? Like, each and everything is a totally different business. Even as a speaker, keynote speaker, to be paid $5, $10, $20,000 to show up is one thing. Speaker that speak to sell, where you show up and sell a product. TED Talks, like each one is an individual business, like what you're saying. You've got 20 different talents, but it's 20 different businesses. And if you are being pulled in all these different directions, you never, I think of it as like the sun. It's got all these rays of sun, right? Like we're just this big, lot of rays. But if you don't have that magnifying glass, you're never going to catch fire. So you got to find that one thing that you can really focus on. Yeah.
Right.
And don't you help artists to do that?
And yes, because it's messaging, it's how you're going to speak to each of those demographics. You know, someone who's going to book you for one thing, you're going to speak to in a certain way, different than you're going to speak to a coaching client. It's just very different audiences, and you're the same person, you're the same entity, and you bring all these gifts, but you kind of have to have your conversations be a little bit different for each of those niches, and that's important.
And for somebody who's creative like yourself, or any of the people in your community, which I want you to talk about in just a moment, but you're so creative. Yes, we, in very different ways, are not lacking ideas. Some people just they don't know what they want to do. They want to be successful, but they have no idea. And then there's those of us who have so many ideas that we can just go in all these different directions.
Right.
So talk to me about how you help someone to figure out what their niche is and what your group is doing.
Okay. Well, the group, first of all, it's very new, but it has so much energy and so momentum that I just love it. It's called Mad Hat. So MAD is an acronym for Makers, Artists, Designers. And the hat is helping artists thrive. There's even there's a Hat Chats is a podcast that is an offshoot of that, where we talk to different people within this realm of entrepreneurial or self-employed creatives, and discuss all the different struggles, because there's a huge knowledge base that we can share and learn from one another. Mad Hat right now is New England based, so it's really nice that we can be online, because that's a great way to share conversations, but every now and then do something that's actually face-to-face and collaborative, because a lot of us are working in isolation. And that's really what drove me to the point of saying, I want to work with people. I want to collaborate. I think as they say, we rise by lifting others. I found that when I would facilitate a workshop and have someone come in as a guest artist, I would hustle to really sell that workshop even more than if it was just me, because I didn't want to let them down.
Yeah.
And then I would always get something out of what they brought to it. And I thought, I like this. I like the feeling of this. And that's really Mad Hat times whatever we can grow it to be, so that we can share resources and information. This particular past month, because this is March, we just did a group exercise in goal setting. And it was called March Madness instead of March Madness. And what it is basically a bracket sheet, where, just like you said, we have no shortage of ideas. It was an exercise in brain dumping, all the stuff that's rattling around, our creative, for years I've been meaning to do this or that project, and it just keeps getting pushed. It just doesn't make it. So then we look at these ideas, we take it down to the next level. Okay, let's simplify it down to 8. And then, okay, what makes your final 4 in this bracket? And what are you actually going to do this month? And hold yourself accountable to getting it through, instead of having it be on the back burner forever. Or if it does stay on the back burner, sometimes you need to just let it go. It's okay, it's not meant to be maybe this year or even next year. And don't feel guilty about that, because we'll get really bogged down in all the things I didn't do. And look at the things you did do, look at the things you do accomplish. So that's just one example of sharing some of the, I think, time management skills, the business skills. The bracket sheet also, as we called it, the bracket sheet, it also balanced what are your creative initiatives versus your self-promotion, and versus just the money, the income. You kind of have to keep it all going, all those wheels spinning.
as we would say in network marketing, it's like having plates. Like if you have the pole with the plate spinning, you get this one spinning and that one
Right.
spinning, and you got to
Then go
spin that
back.
one some more.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the acronym. It's,
Yeah.
TED Talks, technology, education, and design, I think is what TED stands for. And I could see Mad Hat being something that is a movement
I would hope so.
that
Like,
grabs
that would
on all
be,
over the country and all over the world.
that
Yeah.
would be ideal. That, because I think I do like to read a lot of business books and, follow different people, podcasts or whatever. And there are so many people that have brilliant principles to put out there, but sometimes when you're speaking to creatives, it's not like you have to talk a different language. I mean, we get it, but for us to apply it to what we do, it's almost like a different dialect that you have to sort of help us to help ourselves lay it out there, and we may be more visual the way we learn.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. No brainer. But yeah, so I think just kind of a twist in dialect is the way to go, and to sort of break it down into very specific things like, okay, well, how does this, it all sounds great in theory, but how does this actually apply to me making art or making whatever artisanal thing I make and selling it?
Talk a little bit about exactly who this is for, like, makers, artists, and designers. Give me an example.
Right. Well, so right now our group has a lot of people who are in the teaching sector of art. So they either teach in the school system or they teach privately, or even if they just are instructors doing the paint night event type of things. We have several of those. I have a couple of graphic novelist, cartoon, published comic book professionals. We have people who make novelty gifts, woodworkers, crafters. So it's really everything, makers, artists, and designers. I'd like to get more designers in too, because where I see a gap that needs to be filled is sometimes people are so into the making aspect, they get very overwhelmed by all the things we need to know with technology or different selling platforms or social media platforms. And I think there could be a good synergy of between people who work in graphic design more.
So what are some other titles and positions? So for people who are watching that maybe know people,
Yeah,
who are they looking for to share?
I would say if anyone the people who would get the most out of Mad Hat and be the great asset to it are people who just want to use their creative energies to monetize it, to actually, not just a hobby where you just, maybe you're at that stage right now where it is a hobby, but if your goal is to get it to bring in some income, or if you're actually doing it as your income, that's where you'll probably generate more momentum for yourself, because it's a lot of very practical things. And some of it's hard, some of it's not all like, oh, we're just going to all sit together and paint and,
Well, if it's costing you money, it's a hobby. If it's making you money, it's a career. So you're looking for people who want to make it a career.
Yeah.
And when you talked about making things, I remember when we first started talking about this, when you first created it, it had something to do with us talking about you doing some cause marketing and giving back. And
Right.
E68 is something you're really passionate about. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
And we talked about maybe having some kind of an event where all of these makers and artists and designers are creating things that maybe could be sold as a fundraiser for that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, that's underway. Thank you. So MAD, although it's makers, artists, and designers, I also tell people when they come into it's just joining a Facebook group for now, but when they come in, I say, I'd also like to see it MAD, make a difference. I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I've been very blessed to be able to do the kinds of things I've been able to do, and to give back to the community is just a really big part of what I want to incorporate into it. Because I do sort of thrive on that whole marketing aspect of stuff, there's a local New Hampshire-based charity called End 68 Hours of Hunger, and it's a phenomenal organization. They bring food into the school systems to send home on a Friday with children who are, getting the, what do you call it, subsidized meals for people who meet that income restriction. And on Fridays, there are a lot of children facing hunger issues and food scarcity issues. So this organization goes and they just anonymously, they'll be told by the guidance counselor or by the nurse of a school, we need 30 bags or 40 bags, whatever it is, this week. And they'll pack up these bags of a value of $10. and drop them off at the school. So the school system that we're supporting with this fundraiser is the Derry school system, Derry, New Hampshire. They're giving out almost 150 bags right now a week.
Wow.
And when I found that out, because I'm in Derry all the time with my kids, it was very eye-opening because it's a sleeper issue. And this organization is doing their work every week, but any money that they get for their work has to go only to food, no marketing. And so that for me was just a no-brainer because there are thousands of great charities that we could be involved with, but this one was very local, very easy to wrap your head around, and they didn't have a marketing budget. So we're bringing some awareness through our event that we're having.
I think you found this group because I had mentioned it,
Yep.
that Paula Baxley, my other
Yes.
client, is very passionate about it.
Yes.
And I know about it, what you mentioned. So for our viewers, the reason they call it Ending 68 Hours of Hunger is because they leave on Friday, these children, and they go for 68 hours of being hungry over the weekend until they go back to school on Monday morning. Now, when you mentioned that the volunteers and the helpers are packing these bags, how do they give the bags to the kids without embarrassing them, like sliding it to them to take home? And is it's not just a crappy Walmart like throwaway bag?
Yes, actually, it is now. Yeah, it
Just to make
is
it
a
easier?
disposable bag because they're less, they're not notable. It's just a little plastic bag.
When they can't give them a backpack every week, that would be very expensive and be.
And some of the stability issues of this, those are just going to get lost.
Yeah,
a lot of the time. But they will. The kids will run by the nurses or guidance office at the end of the day, and it's just done very discreetly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So no, your initiatives that you have done with Cause Marketing is what brought all this onto the radar for me. And I read your book. It was shortly after we met at that initial networking event that I met you at. I read your book, and you've seen it, right? It's so highlighted. It was like a rainbow just, bled all over this book. I loved so many things of it.
That had to be one of the longest emails I've ever gotten. When and it's highlighted and it's dog-eared and I underlined, and it was just, you are a exquisite writer. Let me just say, your words are.
Thank you.
They're moving.
Thank you.
Even in an email or even in a text that I get from you, like
thank you.
You're not just an artist with visual things. Like you create art with the words you use, and I just want to share that with you.
Thank you.
I want to honor you.
I appreciate that. Well,
so I need a book too.
Okay. Well, I started with a podcast because it's faster, but
then we transcribe and we create a book.
There's so much content that can be generated from this, and again, like coming from outside of just what I know. So one of the podcasts I've done, I interviewed Joseph Schmalke, who is a comic book artist. He raised $3,500 on Kickstarter on his first day of Kickstarter. And I said, we need to talk about that because I've never done a Kickstarter. I've always been afraid to, but it looked interesting. And so we break down into bullet points what makes that work. What do you need to do running a Kickstarter? So that's one of our hat chats. So what we have going on now, though, is we have a local coffee house, Beantown Coffee in Hampstead, who's hosting our an exhibit where basically you'll see a bunch of Mad Hat artisan work.
Really?
Yep.
I am totally out of the loop with this.
This is happening fast, Kimmy, like very fast.
I want to know what's going on.
So we're doing some of the items are cash and carry, and some of the items are 50-50 silent auction. So it's fundraising. The money will go to End 68 Hours of Hunger, but it's an awareness campaign so that people in the area can see some of these talented artists that we have living right in our region, and they can then go and find where they can buy their things, whether it's online or brick and mortar.
So say the name of the place again, the address, and what they're doing.
Beantown Coffee House. They're in Hampstead on Route 111. And Ed Goyette is the owner of Beantown. He has, ever since he opened the doors there, he's been like a pillar of the community and always has believed in community outreach. So that was a perfect fit. Then we will have an event where we kick it off, and we'll have an event where we close it up too, where the silent auction closes, and we'll have some of the Mad Hat artists there. But bringing through the whole thing, we'll have about, say, 20,000 people that month come in and out of the coffee house, and all of those people will have an opportunity to learn about End 68 Hours of Hunger. So the fundraising is, of course, it's important, but even more than that, having a new, 10 or 20,000 people know that this organization exists, that's really the drive behind it, so that we can bring that to light.
Well, and I'm always thinking of things that people need. So like I've done the bra drive, and I was part of helping with the diaper drive, and now there's a gift card drive going on. So I'm always looking for things. So when I think about in 68 hours, I think about gathering up, fruit cups and things. But as you've mentioned, what they really need is money, because they need to buy the things, because people donate a can of corn and a box of mac and cheese. That's not going to do these kids any good. So it's specific things that they need, and they really need the cash for it.
It is. And my kids do karate locally, and they're going to be doing a food drive. It's okay to do the food drives. It's just, you really do get a lot of weird stuff when people go into like clean out my pantry mode.
Yeah.
And we're not looking for the old expired lima beans. It's, when you go to pack, when you pack bags with E68, you go into a room and they have shopped. And it's almost like a little grocery store. It's like, this shelf is all peanut butter, and this one is all tuna fish, and this one is all ramen noodles.
Sure.
And, hundreds. So they're going through $1,500 a week.
So when you say peanut butter and tuna, just for example, to let people know what you're looking for, do you actually put cans of tuna, or is it the packs so the kids can eat it easily? And when it's the peanut butter, are you talking about the big or little ones? Like, what do they need?
Well, I've seen both with the tuna. It's, even if you buy boxes of cereal, what they'll do is they'll take it out of the box and just put, less packaging. They want these bags to be as discreet as possible, and they want them to. Some of these kids are little, and they have little backpacks, and you want to try to fit it in there, or just so that they can carry it. If you're giving them the 24-ounce can of tomato pasta sauce, and a gallon of cereal, like, that's just too much. So small and single serving is good. The canned pastas are really good. Easy meals.
Well, I don't mean to laugh, because I mean, all of those food items are needed, like when it's a family, and there's places to donate that sort of thing. I just want people to understand that, when you're packing a little backpack, you can't use that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm fortunate to be working with Anytime Fitness in Wyndham now. They've hired me to come in and do kind of the sort of thing like what you and I are doing as an entrepreneur and a person without brick and mortar. Well, they've got brick and mortar. They've got this room that can be used for meetups, etc. Well, we're going to do a drive, and because it's a fitness place, we're going to do a healthy food drive. So in other words, they're going to be gathering up, granola bars, and fruit cups and things that aren't quite as bad as mac and cheese.
Yeah.
So, and they'll be finding places like this to donate it to. So,
yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So what do you want people to know about Michelle? Like, who needs to find you? Who are you looking for to find you?
I'm looking for more creatives to collaborate with, to learn from, and to share. I have this belief that we use our gifts to help others grow. And I know that I at this point as I get older and wiser, I have a lot of things to, if I was talking to myself 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd have a lot to say.
Yeah.
A little too much probably. But that goes all the way around. I have learned, literally, had my 12-year-old come home from school and teach me stuff on how to use the whole Google platform of Google Docs and and I'm like, you never stop learning.
Yeah.
So whether it's you're returning a retired person, or it's a student that's, half your age, we all have people to learn from. And I think when we come together as creatives, it's really nice, because we're sort of an introverted species sometimes. So it's nice to just kind of sit down with people and one-on-one, one-on-three, and just kind of share.
Well, the way I look at it, as an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, I feel like we're on an entrepreneurship all by ourselves, like a big ghost ship, sometimes the pirate ship, and we are the captain of our entrepreneurship. And it can be so lonely, and it can be sad and depressing sometimes, and it can be exciting and give you space all at the same time. But where I really shine for me, and it sounds like for you, is getting around like-minded people that are visionary and talking about great ideas. And that's exactly what you're looking for in your group. Now, I know you have a piece of paper under your fanny that has some notes that you want. So I want you to be able to mention things. So you mentioned there's several books that you'd like to mention. Of course, mine is one of them, and I'll give you a moment for that.
Yeah, no, Mingle to Millions was, I just have like 3 or 4 books that I've read in the past couple years that were game changers for me. Mingle to Millions was one because of the 2 overarching things in it was cause marketing in general, because I have switched on that philanthropy part in my brain that said I really want to do something that has a little deeper purpose. And the other thing that you teach through that and through all of your teachings is not networking in the whole like, here's my business card, here's my elevator pitch, but the net webbing where you just kind of put yourself out there and attract the right people. Who wants to go out and meet 400 people that aren't the right people? That's not
quality versus quantity.
Yeah, and especially if some of that, like, you know, elbow rubbing is kind of painful to begin with because you'd rather just be in your studio creating. You just want to get with the people that you can actually be comfortable with. So net webbing was something that really changed the way that I started to do business and how I started to look at clients, customers, friends, neighbors, all of it. Another couple of books, I love The Barefoot Executive by Carrie Wilkerson. I don't know how many times I've read it. So when I say the past 2 or 3 years, I think I started reading it maybe 5 years ago, and I kind of revisit it like each year because there are so many takeaways. And she's a motivational work from home mom, speaker type of thing, and just gives you so many nuggets that you can apply and start where you are is one of her big things. Start where you are. And then The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur by Michael Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz. That is a fantastic book if you don't want to look at building a business plan in the traditional sense, because we're a little creative and we don't want to do it the way it's, you know, traditionally taught. He talks about the importance of the 3 sheets. So toilet paper, 3 sheets left on the roll. What are you going to do? How are you going to make it count? Really, he simplifies business plan down to the 3 sheets that you need to run a business.
Well, we're at the end of the show, Michelle, and you are a joy and a pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me.
And I really want to encourage anyone and everyone that is creative, that is entrepreneurial, that is you know, looking for this type of a community to reach out to Michelle, because she's just, from the minute we met, from the minute we laid eyes on each other, we were just cut from the same cloth. So
it was the shoes, really. I think we both had sparkly shoes.
Always. So thank you for being a part of the Happiness Jungle TV show. We are excited to know that we live in a jungle, and it is a happy one too. Thank you, Michelle, for being on.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
You're welcome.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.